All right, today we're basically becoming DNA detectives. We're going to follow a team of scientists as they track down the genetic culprit behind a very mysterious cancer that's been haunting families for generations.
So, what if there was a disease that just kept showing up in your family, generation after generation, almost like a curse? You know it's written into your family's blueprint, but you have no idea where or why. So what if we could actually read that blueprint letter by letter to find the one tiny typo causing all the trouble? Well, that is the exact question at the heart of our story today.
Okay, so the mystery here revolves around a pretty specific disease, familial non-medullary thyroid cancer. Now, this isn't the kind of thyroid cancer you hear about most often. It's a rarer form that very clearly runs in families. But for so many of these families, the exact genetic reason why has been a complete puzzle.
And look, this isn't just some abstract chart. These are family trees. Every single one of those colored-in shapes represents a real person, a mother, a son, a grandchild, who's been affected by this inherited disease. This is the human side of the mystery these scientists are desperately trying to solve.
And you know, the stakes here they're incredibly high. If your parents or your sibling or your child has this cancer, your own risk is a staggering 8 to 10 times higher than the average person's. So finding the genetic root cause, it's not just some academic exercise. It is an absolutely critical step toward protecting these families.
So how in the world do you even start to solve a genetic mystery this big? Well, you bring in a team of really dedicated scientists, and you hand them the most powerful magnifying glass in modern medicine, a tool that can literally read the entire human genome.
That tool is called whole genome sequencing, or WGS for short. The easiest way to think about it is this. Imagine your DNA is a giant, multi-volume encyclopedia with all the instructions for building and running you. WGS is the process of reading every single word in every single one of those volumes, just to find one tiny, misplaced letter that could be causing a massive problem.
So, for this investigation, the scientists zeroed in on 5 specific families. They sequenced the full genomes of 23 family members who had the disease, and, this is crucial, 3 who didn't. And the whole idea was to lay their DNA blueprint side by side, to spot the key differences, the genetic variations that all the affected family members shared.
So they do all the sequencing, and what do they get? Well, a flood, just an absolute mountain of data. The researchers were suddenly facing a totally new challenge: how to find that one crucial clue, that genetic needle, in a haystack made of millions of harmless variations.
So to get through all that noise, they use this really powerful digital filter. It's kind of like a high-tech sieve with multiple layers. First, it filters out all the common genetic variants. Then it looks for the rare ones that only show up in the sick family members. It just keeps narrowing and narrowing the field, focusing only on genes already linked to cancer, until only the most likely suspects are left. And I mean, just look at how well this thing worked. For each family, they started with over 100,000 potential genetic variants. After running all that data through the pipeline, that massive number was whittled down to just 31 key suspects. That is an absolutely incredible feat of data analysis that turned a seemingly impossible job into a manageable investigation.
Okay, but a list of suspects, that's not the end of the story, right? You can't just close the case. The scientists had a hunch that these genes probably weren't acting alone. They needed to figure out if they were all connected, if they were all part of some bigger biological conspiracy that was driving the cancer.
And that became the huge, pivotal question. Now that they had their short list of 31 high-priority genes, the researchers had to ask, is there a common thread here? When you look at all these genetic clues together, what's the story they're trying to tell us? And this is the big aha moment. When they analyzed those 31 suspect genes, they found something amazing. It turns out they weren't random at all. They all plugged into 2 major interconnected biological networks. You can think of these pathways as the master control boards for a cell, the things that regulate fundamental processes like growth, division, and survival. The faulty genes were all messing with the same core systems.
All right, so let's name these culprits. What are these 2 master pathways that were basically being hijacked by these faulty genes? These are the very systems that tell a cell when to live, when to die, or when to divide, and in this case, they were being pushed toward out-of-control division.
The 2 key pathways are known as PI3K/AKT and MAPK/ERK. Basically, you can think of them as the go and grow signals for your cells. In a healthy body, they're kept under really tight control. They only switch on when they're supposed to. But these mutations were like having the accelerator pedal jammed to the floor. The growth signal was just stuck on, constantly, and that leads to the uncontrolled cell division we call cancer. And drilling down even deeper, they started to pinpoint the specific faulty genes inside these pathways. You had some like RET, which are well-known oncogenes. Think of them as the gas pedal. And then you had others like CHEK2, which are tumor suppressors. Those are supposed to be the brakes. They also found problems in genes that protect our DNA, and even in genes that are essential for normal thyroid function. Each faulty gene was playing a part in the breakdown of the whole system.
So, look, solving the mystery is amazing, right? But it's really just the beginning. The real power here is in what we can do with this knowledge. Now that we've identified the culprits, what does that actually mean for the families who have been living under the shadow of this disease for so long?
Well, the impact for these families, it's just profound. It means doctors can now create very precise genetic tests to see which family members might carry these high-risk genes. That leads to much better, more informed genetic counseling. It gives scientists a roadmap for developing new drugs that can target these overactive pathways directly. And for people who are identified as carriers, it can help guide doctors to use more vigilant screening and more aggressive treatments when needed.
You know, this quote from the researchers really just says it all. Finding these mutations is absolutely critical. It takes us beyond just understanding a disease and gives families real, concrete tools they can use for risk assessment, for screening, and hopefully for prevention.
And that, of course, leaves us with one final, much bigger question. This story is just one small piece of a revolution that's happening in medicine right now. As we get better and better at reading our own genetic blueprints, at finding the very roots of diseases like cancer, how is this going to completely change the future of our health and the way we practice medicine? It's a future that's being written, one decoded gene at a time.